My sister wanted to throw away all of my parents' belongings after they passed away. But I found, the first time my sister said the word dumpster, she said it like it was a gift. We were standing in our parents' living room, the blinds half drawn against a pale afternoon, the air still carrying that specific mix of lemon cleaner and old paper. I had been there since 7 that morning, quietly sorting what I could without making stacks that looked like grief. I'd folded my mother's dish towels the way she used to, corners aligned. I'd gathered loose mail into a shoebox and labeled it by month with a pen I found in the kitchen drawer. My sister Marina arrived at 1:28. She wore a fitted black dress that looked purchased for a camera, sunglasses still on, phone held in front of her like it was guiding her through the room. "Okay," she said. "We're not doing this slow. This needs to be done in a week." Her voice bounced off the framed family photos in the glass cabinet my father had dusted every Sunday. She didn't take off her shoes. She didn't look at the couch where our dad had slept the last few nights he was home, propped up on pillows, refusing to let anyone see how thin he'd become. I didn't correct her timeline. I didn't tell her I'd already spent 3 days going through the refrigerator, calling the hospice supply company, canceling utilities, and making a spreadsheet of bills. I just watched her walk past the mantel, where 2 sympathy cards still stood open like they were trying to breathe. She tapped her phone screen. "I've got a guy," she said. "Junk hauler. He'll bring a truck. We toss everything that's not worth money, keep what I want for memories, list the rest. Easy." The way she said memories sounded like a brand partnership. I leaned over the dining table. My father's ledger was there, a black notebook with his neat columns, dated in ink. He tracked everything, groceries, property taxes, even the amount he tipped the plumber. The last entry was 3 months before he died, when his handwriting started to slope. "We should inventory first," I said, keeping my voice even. "There are documents, receipts." Dad kept records. Marina finally took off her sunglasses. She looked at me like I'd suggested we build a museum. "Inventory?" she repeated. "For what?" "We're not running an estate sale like it's 1982. I opened my mouth, then closed it. This wasn't the moment. It never was with Marina. If you tried to reason with her, she treated it like an attack. If you pushed back, she became the injured party. If you stayed calm, she'd talk over you until she could say later that you never said anything. She walked into the hallway and started opening doors like she was on a timed scavenger hunt. "Oh my God," she called. "Mom kept all the linens. These are going." Her words landed in me like a small, dull weight. My mother's linen closet had been her quiet pride. Neatly stacked pillowcases with hand-sewn initials, tablecloths she ironed for holidays no one attended anymore. I followed at a measured pace. Marina was already pulling out stacks, dropping them on the floor. She did it with 2 fingers, as if fabric could stain her. "Marina," I said, "please don't throw things on the ground. I'm trying to keep it organized." She laughed, not a full laugh, just a quick, sharp sound. "You always did love pretending you're the manager of everything," she said. "Relax. They're dead. They don't care." The words were casual. She didn't whisper. She said it like she was commenting on the weather. My hands stayed at my sides. I watched her. I let the sentence hang in the air without reacting, without giving her the satisfaction of seeing it land. Marina thrived on reactions. She wanted emotion because emotion made her powerful. I stepped past her and picked up the linens, folding them back into stacks, not because I thought it would change her, but because I didn't want the house to look like it had been robbed. She leaned against the doorframe, phone up again. "Say hi," she said, pointing the camera toward me. "I'm documenting the process. People love this kind of content. Clearing out my parents' home, it's therapeutic." I looked at the phone lens and didn't smile. "Don't film me," I said. She tilted her head like she was considering it, then continued anyway. "Here's my sister," she narrated. "She's the sentimental one. She wants to keep like everything. But we're being practical." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't snatch the phone. I just turned and walked back toward the dining room. The calmness irritated her more than a fight would have. Behind me, I heard her say, louder, for the camera. "She's always been like this. Our parents babied her." That was how she rewrote history. Any decency our parents had shown me became a flaw in me. Any boundaries I tried to set became evidence I was difficult. I sat at the dining table and opened the shoebox of mail again. My parents' return address labels still sat in the top corner of envelopes, our old home. Their handwriting was everywhere. Notes on the margins of catalog pages, a grocery list in my mother's cursive, my father's block letters on a property tax reminder. Marina's voice floated from the hallway as she moved on to the bedroom. "Look at this," she said. "Seriously? Why did they keep so much? It's like they were hoarders." Then, like she was delivering a punchline, she added, "If they'd listened to me, they would have moved into something modern years ago." My father had listened to her plenty. I remembered the last Thanksgiving at the house, Marina leaning back in her chair, telling our mother the living room looked sad, telling our father he should refinance, telling both of them they needed to think about the future, as if they hadn't already. My parents would nod and smile and offer her more food. They always offered more. More patience, more understanding, more forgiveness. And Marina always took more. I kept sorting. I made piles. Utilities, medical, tax. I wrote dates in the margins. March 14th, electric, April 2nd, hospice, May 19th, property insurance renewal. My phone vibrated on the table. A text from Marina, even though she was 10 feet away. "I'm booking the junk guy for Friday. Be ready." I stared at the screen. Friday was 4 days away. I typed back slowly. "We need to review paperwork first. Dad had records. There may be items for probate." 3 dots appeared. Then her reply came. "Don't be dramatic. There's nothing complicated. I'll handle it." I didn't respond. Marina came into the dining room carrying a cardboard box like it weighed nothing. She set it down and popped it open. "Jewelry," she announced. "This goes with me. Mom would want me to have it." I looked inside. The box held my mother's small jewelry tray, the one she kept in her top drawer. A gold chain, 2 rings, a watch with a cracked face, the pearl earrings she wore to my graduation. My mother had once told me, quietly, that she wanted the earrings to go to me. She'd said it without ceremony while we were folding laundry, like she was discussing where to store winter blankets. I didn't say that now. Marina would laugh. Or she'd tell everyone I was making it up. Or she'd say I was obsessed with stuff. Instead, I asked, "Did you check the will?" Marina's lips tightened. "The will is basic," she said. "Everything gets split. But I'm taking what makes sense. You don't even wear jewelry. That's not the point," I said. She leaned forward, her voice dropping as if she was trying to sound kind. "Listen," she said. "You're overwhelmed. You always get stuck. I'm helping." Helping, in Marina's language, meant taking control and framing it as charity. She slid the box toward herself. I held my gaze steady. "Put it back for now," I said. "Until we go through everything together." The room went quiet. Marina looked at me like she couldn't believe I'd said no to her. Then she smiled. Small, polished, practiced. "Okay," she said, too sweet. "Sure." She picked up the box, walked toward the hallway, and I heard the creak of the closet door. Not the bedroom closet. The hall closet, the one our father used for coats and important papers in a locked metal file box on the top shelf. My chest didn't tighten. I didn't rush after her. I listened. A moment of silence. Then the soft scrape of cardboard against metal. A click like something being slid into place. When she came back, her hands were empty. "See?" she said. "Compromise." I nodded once. I didn't thank her. I didn't accuse her. I waited until she left the room again, phone ringing now, her voice rising as she answered with a bright, public laugh. And then I stood and walked to the hall closet. The door was half closed. I opened it fully. The top shelf held the metal file box exactly where it had always been. Under it now sat the cardboard jewelry box, turned so the lid faced the back wall. I didn't touch it. Instead, I looked at the file box. My father's small padlock was still on it. I remembered him unlocking it once when I was 17, pulling out our birth certificates because the school needed copies. He'd done it calmly, like everything else. Then he'd locked it again. There were things in there I hadn't seen. There were things Marina probably didn't know existed. Things she would throw away because they didn't glitter. I closed the closet gently and walked back to the dining table. On my spreadsheet, I added a new line under Friday. Marina scheduled junk removal. Then, without drama, I took out my phone and opened my notes app. I started a new list. Inventory. Timeline. Witnesses. Because Marina had just made it clear this wasn't about grief, it was about control. And if she was willing to move things into closets and call it compromise, then there were already pieces missing from the story she planned to tell everyone. I sat back down, picked up another envelope, and kept my hand steady. Outside, Marina laughed loudly into her phone, making sure anyone who might be listening would hear how fine she was. Inside, I kept sorting, and I decided I wouldn't stop her on Friday. Not yet. By Tuesday, Marina had turned the house into a stage. She didn't move in a straight line through rooms anymore. She orbited them, phone raised, narrating decisions to an invisible audience. She posted polls, keep or toss, over photos of my mother's baking pans. She laughed while filming herself opening drawers, calling it archaeology. She tagged locations. She added captions about closure. She never mentioned my parents' names. I adjusted my schedule around hers. When Marina arrived late in the afternoon, I left early. When she announced she'd work remotely from the house, I stayed in the spare bedroom and sorted documents quietly. I let her feel unopposed. It made her careless. On Wednesday morning, I drove to the county records office before sunrise. I brought my father's ledger, his death certificate, and a copy of the will Marina said was basic. The clerk behind the glass spoke softly and checked the property records. There was a quitclaim filed last year, she said, tapping her screen. Partial interest transfer. I felt a pause in my breathing, but I didn't rush her. From whom to whom, I asked. She turned the monitor slightly so I could see. My father's name, Marina's name, dated 11 months before he died. That can't be right, I said, still calm. He never mentioned it. The clerk nodded. It happens. Was there a power of attorney? Yes, I said. Temporary. Medical. She looked again. This was notarized. I thanked her and asked for certified copies. She slid them through the slot, stamped and official. I paid the fee without comment. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and read the document twice. It transferred a 30% interest in the property to Marina. No mention of me. No mention of my mother, who had still been alive at the time. The notary name rang a bell. I'd seen it on another document. I flipped through my folder and found it again. On a loan agreement Marina had convinced my father to co-sign 2 years earlier, just to help with cash flow. I drove back to the house and put the copies into a new folder labeled Property. I didn't text Marina. I didn't confront her. I added dates to my timeline. That afternoon, I began checking bank statements. My parents had always been modest. 2 checking accounts, 1 savings, a CD that rolled over every 5 years. My father's ledger matched the statements closely until the last year. Then there were withdrawals that didn't. March 3rd, $8,500. April 17th, $12,000. May 29th, $6,300 each, was labeled transfer. Each went to the same external account. I called the bank, identified myself as executor, and requested transfer records. The representative hesitated, then complied. The account holder's name was Marina's LLC. I recognized it from her social media bio. She used it for consulting. That night, Marina ordered takeout and ate at the kitchen island, still filming. I'm starving, she said into her phone. Clearing a house is so emotional. I sat at the table and worked quietly. Did you know, she said, turning slightly toward me but keeping the camera rolling, that grief affects people differently? Some people freeze. Some people take charge. I didn't look up. Like you, she continued, you freeze. I stapled bank statements. On Thursday she brought friends. 2 women I vaguely remembered from her college years arrived with coffee and loud sympathy. Marina gave them a tour, pointing out items she'd already mentally claimed. This is going, she said, tapping my father's chair. Ugly. This is vintage, one friend said. Exactly, Marina replied. Worth money. They laughed. One of them filmed a quick clip near the mantel. Say something profound, Marina prompted. One friend gestured around. It's just stuff, right? Exactly, Marina said. Stuff weighs you down. I was in the hallway, within earshot, sorting coats. My father's winter jacket still smelled faintly of cedar. I checked the pockets carefully. Receipts, a folded note with a phone number, a key I didn't recognize. I put them into labeled bags. Later, when the friends left, Marina dropped her voice and leaned against the counter. I talked to the junk guy again, she said. Friday at 10, big truck. We'll be done by lunch. We? I asked. She smiled. You'll see. That night, after she left, I climbed a chair and reached the top shelf of the hall closet. The metal file box was heavier than I remembered. I set it on the dining table and photographed the lock before opening it. I used my father's spare key, which he'd once given me, just in case. Inside were folders, deeds, insurance policies, old tax returns, and a manila envelope labeled in my father's handwriting, if anything happens. My pulse stayed steady. Inside the envelope was a letter, dated 6 months before he died. He wrote plainly, no emotion. He explained that Marina had pressured him repeatedly about the house, about money, about protecting assets. He said he'd agreed to a partial transfer because she told him it was temporary, for leverage. He wrote that he regretted it. He wrote that he had started to reverse it but became ill. He included copies of emails, Marina's emails. She used phrases like, "It's just paperwork and you won't even notice." She assured him it wouldn't affect inheritance. At the bottom, he wrote one line, "Please make this right." I photographed everything. I scanned it. I backed it up twice. Friday morning came faster than expected. The junk truck arrived early, idling loudly in front of the house like an announcement. Marina greeted the crew with confidence, clipboard in hand. "These rooms are cleared," she said, gesturing broadly. "Take everything not tagged." The tags were neon stickers she'd placed herself. I stood by the dining table, folder in hand, and watched as the crew began lifting furniture. "That stays," I said calmly, pointing to the cabinet. Marina turned, annoyed. "We talked about this," she said. "You're slowing things down." "That cabinet contains documents," I replied. "It's not trash," she waved at the crew. "Skip it for now." Then she leaned toward me, voice low. "You're embarrassing yourself," she said, "in front of everyone." I looked at her. "We can stop any time." She smiled tightly. "No, we're finishing." As the truck filled, I noticed what was missing. The jewelry box wasn't in the closet. It wasn't in the bedroom. It wasn't anywhere in the house. I didn't ask. I didn't accuse. I noted the time. 10:42 a.m. At 11:15, Marina stepped outside to take a call. I walked past her open car door and saw the box on the back seat, half covered by a jacket. I took a photo, wide shot, close-up, timestamp, visible. When she came back inside, she announced loudly, "We're making progress." I nodded. By noon, the house looked hollowed out. The junk truck pulled away. Marina hugged herself dramatically. "Closure," she said. I packed my folders into my bag and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I have an appointment," I said. "With who?" I paused. "An attorney." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes shifted. "Oh," she said lightly. "You're overreacting." I met her gaze. "No," I said. "I'm documenting." That night, I emailed myself the final scan. Subject line, "Key receipt." Attached, the notarized transfer, the bank records, the letter. I didn't sleep much, not because I was anxious, but because I was waiting. On Saturday morning, Marina posted a video. Caption, "Honoring my parents by letting go." In the background, I spotted the dining room, empty, clean, and on the mantel behind her shoulder, something caught the light, my mother's pearl earrings. I took a screenshot and added it to the folder. Because now she wasn't just careless, she was public. Marina chose the venue herself. She announced it Sunday night in the family group chat, between a heart emoji and a calendar invite. Memorial brunch, parents' house, next Saturday, noon. Dress nice, let's celebrate their lives properly. Properly in Marina's vocabulary meant visibly. I responded with a single word, okay? Over the next 5 days, she became meticulous. She hired a cleaning service. She ordered catered food from a place my parents had never gone to because it was too loud. She borrowed chairs from neighbors and arranged them in the backyard, like it was an event space. She told relatives it would be healing. She told friends it would be full circle. She told everyone to come. I watched it unfold from the edges. I helped when asked. I stayed quiet. I continued my routine. Early mornings, careful notes, phone calls that never included Marina. On Monday, I met with the attorney. I didn't dramatize anything. I laid out the documents in chronological order. Bank transfers, the emails, the letter. He listened without interruption. "She exploited timing," he said finally. "And access? What happens next?" I asked. "That depends," he replied. "Do you want this handled privately, or do you want to stop her behavior?" I didn't answer right away. On Tuesday, I requested copies of the security footage from the bank branch where the notarized documents were filed. On Wednesday, I spoke with the notary. I didn't accuse. I asked procedural questions. She confirmed Marina had scheduled the appointment and brought my father in. She remembered because he'd been quiet and unwell. On Thursday, Marina sent another message. "I'll do a short speech. Just something simple. I'll say a few words about Mom's jewelry and how meaningful it is to me. I read it twice. I replied, "Sounds fine." That night, I laid everything out on my dining table at home, printed screenshots, certified copies, a USB drive labeled by date, a typed timeline with timestamps, names, locations. I didn't rehearse what I would say. I didn't need to. The documents said it better than I could. Saturday arrived clear and bright. By 11:30, the backyard was full. Aunts I hadn't seen in years. My parents' old neighbors, Marina's friends, even her business partner, the one whose name was on the LLC account. Marina moved through the crowd in a pale dress, composed and warm, hugging people with practiced pauses. She touched the pearl earrings when she laughed. I stood near the side of the yard, next to my father's old grill. I greeted people when they approached. I listened. "She's so strong," one aunt whispered, nodding toward Marina. "She always was," someone replied. At noon, Marina clinked a glass. She spoke about legacy, about letting go, about how our parents had trusted her to handle things. She mentioned the house, the memories, the responsibility. She held up the earrings briefly, smiling. "These remind me of Mom," she said. "She wanted me to have them." There was a soft murmur of approval. I didn't interrupt. When she finished, she raised her glass. "To family," she said. That was my cue. I stepped forward, not rushing. I waited until the room settled. I held the folder at my side, not raised. "Thank you for coming," I said. My voice carried without effort. "I want to add something." Marina turned slightly, surprised, but still smiling. "I won't speak long," I continued. "I just want to clarify a few things, for everyone." I placed the folder on the table beside the food. I opened it slowly. "These are copies of my parents' records," I said. "Some of you know my father kept detailed notes." I held up the first document, the quitclaim deed. "This was filed 11 months ago," I said. "It transferred partial ownership of this house." There was a pause. People leaned in. "To Marina," I added. Her smile stiffened. I continued evenly. "This was done while my mother was alive, without her knowledge, and while my father was ill." I set it down and lifted the bank statements. These transfers occurred over the last year. They went to Marina's company. A murmur spread. I didn't look at Marina. I addressed the group. "I also have emails," I said, "and a letter my father wrote asking that this be corrected." I turned the letter so they could see his handwriting. Marina stepped forward. "This is inappropriate," she said sharply. "You're doing this here?" I met her eyes briefly. "You invited witnesses," I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I gestured to the table. "I provided copies to the estate attorney. I'm sharing this now so there's no confusion." Someone asked, "Is this true?" Marina laughed. "Brittle. This is a misunderstanding. She's emotional." I didn't respond. I reached into the folder one last time and held up the screenshot. "This was taken Friday at 11:15 a.m., I said. "It shows my mother's jewelry box in Marina's car before the estate was settled." I placed it beside the others. Silence settled in. Marina looked around. Her business partner shifted uncomfortably. An aunt sat down heavily. "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm documenting." I closed the folder. "I won't discuss this further today," I said. "But these records will be reviewed." I stepped back. Marina's voice rose. "You can't just—" I didn't stay to hear the rest. I walked through the house, past rooms stripped bare, and out the front door. Behind me, voices overlapped. Questions. Explanations. The sound of certainty cracking. I sat in my car and exhaled once. My phone buzzed immediately. Then again. Messages stacked up. I didn't open them, because the truth was already out there, and now it would move on its own. I didn't return to the house that day. I drove to my apartment, made tea, and filed the final set of documents with the attorney through a secure portal. I labeled the upload post-disclosure, then I turned my phone face down and left it there. By evening, the silence broke on its own. Not from Marina at first. From other people. An aunt emailed asking for copies for her records. A cousin texted to say he'd left early and was sorry. One of my parents' neighbors wrote that she'd always wondered why my father seemed stressed that last year. I replied to none of it immediately. At 9:42 p.m., Marina called. I let it ring. She texted, "You humiliated me." I waited. "You had no right." I waited. "Call me, now." I didn't. The next morning, I met the attorney again. He'd already received 2 inquiries, one from a family member, one from Marina's business partner. "She's panicking," he said neutrally. "That's not your concern." He outlined the next steps: a formal demand letter, a forensic review of the accounts, a notice to freeze further transfers, a correction filing regarding the property interest. None of it was dramatic. It was procedural. It took time. That afternoon, Marina posted again. The video was shorter than usual. No earrings this time. The comments were turned off. Caption: "Grief is complicated. Please respect our privacy." Privacy after she'd live-streamed the sorting of my parents' life. I saved the post. On Tuesday, the notary emailed the attorney with an addendum. She clarified that my father had not been advised independently and that Marina had done all the talking. On Wednesday, the bank flagged the LLC account for review pending documentation. On Thursday, Marina's business partner withdrew publicly from their venture, citing internal discrepancies. I didn't celebrate. I updated my timeline. Friday morning, Marina showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door, stepped outside, and closed it behind me. She looked different, tired, less arranged. "You blindsided me," she said, "in front of everyone." "I informed them," I replied. She scoffed. "You could have come to me." "I did," I said. "You told me you'd handle it." It crossed her arms. "You're doing this for control." I shook my head slightly. "I'm doing this for accuracy." She stared at me like she was searching for the right version of me, the one who would fold. "Give me time," she said. "I can fix it." I waited a moment. "Through the attorney," I said. Her jaw tightened. "This is why they leaned on me," she snapped. "You're cold." I met her eyes. "I'm consistent." She left without another word. Over the next month, things settled into place. The partial property transfer was reversed. Funds were returned to the estate. The jewelry was logged, photographed, and placed into the inventory. Marina stopped posting about grief and started posting quotes about betrayal. No one engaged. At the final estate meeting, she sat across the table from me and said nothing. The attorney spoke. Documents were signed, decisions were recorded. When it was over, I walked out alone. I didn't keep the house. I didn't want it. I arranged for it to be sold, transparently, with proceeds divided according to the corrected will. I kept a few things: my father's ledger, my mother's linens, the pearl earrings. I boxed them carefully. I set boundaries. Communication went through email. No unscheduled visits. No social media entanglements. Life became quieter. Months later, I passed the house on a different street and thought of my parents without the tension Marina had wrapped around their memory. I thought of my father's handwriting, steady until the end. I thought of how he'd trusted me to read it correctly. I didn't win anything. I restored something. That was enough.